We had a fantastic question come in from someone navigating the world of business and wondering about the ins and outs of using PayPal.
Yeah, it really struck a chord, didn't it? It's such a common platform.
It really is. But understanding its real impacts, the practical details, that's key. So that's what we're digging into today.
Exactly. And what's important, I think, is that our listener, and probably many of you, want a solid grasp of this without, getting bogged down in super complex stuff.
Right. The goal is to feel informed, confident in making those business decisions.
Precisely.
Okay, so for this deep dive, we've gathered some, I think, really useful resources. We've got an article from InFact. It's a Polish publication. And it breaks down PayPal fees as legitimate business expenses. Very practical angle.
That's useful.
And we've also spent time sifting through Reddit threads, those real-world experiences.
Oh, the gold mine of user experiences.
Exactly. Covering everything from using PayPal with Google Ads, getting paid for online work, even whether you really need a dedicated business account. So our mission is basically to pull all this together, synthesize it into clear, actionable insights so you can use PayPal for your business, hopefully without feeling overwhelmed.
Sounds like a plan. So let's start with the basics. What is PayPal and why is it so popular for businesses?
Good starting point.
Well, it's obviously not the only online payment service out there, but it's definitely a big one, especially, as that InFact article pointed out, for international remote work.
Right, like if you're getting paid from the U.S. or Canada, Ireland, places like that.
Exactly. PayPal often pops up in those conversations.
And a really smart fundamental question our listener asked was, is a PayPal account like a bank account? Does it need reporting?
Ah, yes, that's a common point of confusion. Now, according to the interpretations from Polish tax authorities, and the InFact article backs this up,
Okay.
a PayPal account is not technically classified as a bank account. So no, it doesn't need to be reported to the CEIDG.
CEID, just for context, that's the Polish Business Registration Database, right?
Correct. So the account itself doesn't need specific reporting there. However, and this is really crucial, any income you receive through PayPal, that's still taxable income. You absolutely have to declare that. The tax authorities know all about PayPal.
Okay. So account isn't a bank account for reporting, but the money coming in is definitely taxable income. Got it.
Exactly. Can't overlook those funds.
Right. Now, let's move into the area that probably causes a bit more anxiety, the costs. What does it actually cost to use PayPal for business?
Okay, yeah, the InFact article gives a good breakdown here. The main thing to know is that the fees are usually paid by the seller, the person receiving the money.
Okay. And what kinds of fees are we talking about?
Generally, they fall into two main buckets.
Bucket number one.
That would be the transfer fees, or prowizy za przelui, as the Polish article calls them. Basically, when you get paid, PayPal takes a percentage.
And is that a fixed percentage?
No, and that's important. It varies.
Yeah.
It depends on where the sender's located and also how they paid, like from their bank or their PayPal balance.
Ah, okay. So getting paid from someone in, say, Germany might have a different fee than from someone in Australia.
Precisely. The commission, it can range from about 0.9% up to maybe 4.9%. Plus, there's usually a small fixed fee on top of that, depending on the currency.
Okay.
The article mentioned like 0.35 euro as an example. And importantly, it points out that in your PayPal history, the fee shows up as just one total amount deducted.
Right. So you see the deduction, but you might need to dig into the details to see the exact breakdown for that specific transaction. Those percentages, especially 4.9%, could really add up, couldn't they?
They certainly can, yeah. And that's why the InVect article really stresses that these fees, well, they can be significant. You should definitely include them as a business expense in your accounting.
Makes sense. Ignoring them would mess up your profit calculations.
Totally. Give you an inaccurate picture.
Okay, so transfer fees are the first main cost. What's the second type?
The second is currency conversion fees. Opisa prezwalutowanie. These kick in if your business doesn't have, say, a euro account and you receive euros.
Right, so if I get paid in US dollars, but my main business account is in pound sterling.
Exactly. When you go to withdraw that money or even just hold it, if PayPal has to convert it, they handle the exchange.
And how do they charge for that? Is it a separate fee?
Not exactly listed as a separate fee. Instead, what they do is use an exchange rate that's, let's say, a bit less favorable for you than the standard market rate.
Oh, okay.
The InFact article sort of compares it to using an online currency exchange service. They also build their fee into the rate.
So if the market rate is, say, $1.2 to the pound, PayPal might give you 1.18 or something.
Something like that, yeah. That little difference, that's effectively their fee. And it can add up over time, especially with larger amounts.
Okay, so it's built into the rate, not a separate line item. And those differences, just like any currency fluctuation, you account for them in your books.
Precisely. Any gains or losses from currency conversion, whether through PayPal or another service, that's just part of your regular business accounting.
Right. Okay, so we've got transfer fees and currency conversion costs. Now, the practical side.
Yeah.
How do businesses actually document these costs for their accountant? It's not like getting a monthly paper statement from a bank, is it?
Well, actually, PayPal does provide something similar. The In Fact article makes a good comparison to documenting bank fees.
Okay.
Just like you need your bank statement to show those charges, you need a PayPal account statement to show the PayPal commission so your accountant can book them as expenses.
Got it. Makes sense.
Eh.
So how do you get this statement?
The article lays it out. You log into your PayPal account, go to the History tab. Then you set the date range you need, like for the month or the quarter. And then there should be an option like download file or download statement.
And that gives you a file, maybe a PDF?
Usually PDF, yeah.
That file will list out the transactions and, crucially, show the commission fee deducted for each one.
Perfect. So you give that PDF to your accountant. Exactly. They can see the fees, convert them to your local currency if needed, and record them as proper business costs. Plus, it gives you the data for calculating those currency exchange differences we talked about.
That's really practical.
Yeah.
Knowing how to get that specific document is key for keeping the books straight. Okay, let's switch gears slightly. We saw a question pop up on Reddit in RUGC creators.
Okay.
Someone was asking if they needed a separate business PayPal account, specifically for getting paid for campaigns. What was the general feeling there?
Oh, the advice was pretty overwhelmingly, yes, get a business account.
Really? Why is that?
Couple of main reasons. First, just for organization. Keeping business income and expenses totally separate from personal stuff makes tax time way simpler.
Yeah, I can see that. Avoids mixing things up.
Definitely. But also, some platforms you might work with, they might actually require a business PayPal account to send you payments.
So it might not even be optional sometimes.
Exactly. Could be a requirement. And interestingly, someone else in that thread mentioned Stripe as a good alternative. So worth keeping that name in mind, too.
Good point. Always good to know the alternatives. Now, this is where things get maybe a bit less smooth. When you look at user experiences, especially on Reddit, you start seeing some, let's say, frustrations.
The other side of the coin?
Yeah. We saw little mentions, like in Google Leads, people talking about PayPal as just one of the payment systems they deal with, sometimes linked to other frustrations, like with Google Ads itself.
Right. It's just part of the ecosystem.
But it hints that people have, opinions about it. But the really deep and frankly kind of worrying stuff came from a long thread on our Pulse guide.
Yes, I saw that one. About the business whose account got frozen.
That's the one. Really revealing. What are the main problems they ran into?
Well, the biggest one was just bam, sudden account freeze, all their funds locked up. And we're not talking small change here.
How much was it?
They mentioned something close to a six-figure sum in their local currency, I assume, but still a huge amount for a business.
Wow. That's devastating, especially if they rely on that cash flow.
Absolutely crippling. And this happened even though their business model involved pre-orders, so some delays were kind of expected.
So why did PayPal freeze it? What was the reason given?
They apparently told the business the funds were being held as a reserve, potential refunds down the line.
Okay.
But here's the kicker. Their actual refund rate at the time was only about 6.5% of the total amount frozen.
So they froze almost 100% of the funds because of a potential 6.5% refund rate. That seems way off.
Hugely disproportionate, yeah. And obviously, it massively impacted their ability to actually fulfill the orders they had.
And could they talk to anyone at PayPal to sort it out?
That was another major frustration. They described it as almost impossible to get through to someone who could actually make a decision. Just dealing with frontline customer service who couldn't really help with the freeze itself. Oh, that's the worst. Being stuck in customer service loops.
Exactly. And then, the real catch-22. PayPal apparently said funds would start being released once they started shipping orders.
But how could they ship orders if all their money was frozen?
Precisely. They needed the funds to ship, but the funds were locked until they shipped. It's just, mind-boggling, as you said.
That's unbelievably difficult.
And the poster also pointed out something significant, that PayPal had actually been fined before by the Polish consumer protection agency UIKiK for doing similar things, which suggests this wasn't just a one-off weird situation, maybe more systemic.
That adds a lot of weight to their story, definitely. Were there other worrying things mentioned in that discussion?
Oh, yeah. Other users chimed in with similar stories. Funds blocked for ages, sometimes for reasons that seemed totally random. And a big theme was this feeling that PayPal's buyer protection can be really tough on sellers. Very one-sided sometimes.
How so? What kinds of examples? Like sellers being forced to pay for return shipping for faulty goods all the way back to, say, China, even if the item was low value.
Right, where the shipping costs more than the item itself.
Exactly. Makes it totally impractical. And because of stuff like this, a really strong piece of advice came out from multiple people.
What was that?
Withdraw your money from PayPal immediately. As soon as you receive it, don't let it sit there. They kept saying, it's not a bank.
Wow. That's a pretty stark warning. Don't treat it like a savings account.
Absolutely not. Treat it as a processor. Get the money out fast.
Sure.
And there was also this idea that PayPal's automated systems might just flag an account.
For what?
Maybe just for receiving a large amount suddenly, or even just having a few refund requests close together. The system might see it as suspicious, even if it's totally legitimate business growth or normal customer service issues.
So you could get penalized just for being successful or for handling returns properly.
It seems like a real risk based on these accounts. And for people stuck in that frozen account situation, the advice was basically go external. Contact consumer rights groups.
Like the Resnick Finansowy or Jessic Moof mentioned in the thread. Financial ombudsman or SME ombudsman, basically.
Exactly. Seek help outside PayPal if their support isn't working. Interestingly, though, someone did mention having a much better experience with Stripe.
Ah, Stripe again, as a more reliable alternative.
Yeah, described as more business-friendly, more reliable, and the original poster, they basically said once they hopefully got their money back, they were done with PayPal. Too unreliable, potentially damaging.
That paints a really concerning picture. Convenience on one side, especially internationally, but a potentially massive risk of inaccessible funds on the other.
That's the core tension, yeah. And it's not just businesses. We saw another thread, Early Data Annotation Tech, where someone had their personal PayPal account permanently blocked, which again shows how these account issues can hit individuals trying to earn online.
What happened there? Was it similar?
A bit different. This person made the account years ago when they were underage, maybe used a nickname or slight variation of their name, didn't use it for like 15 years. Then they tried to update it to their proper legal name, provided ID and everything as an adult, and instead of updating it, PayPal just permanently blocked the account.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Just for trying to correct old information?
Apparently so. And the worst part was they had earnings about $800 waiting from this data annotation platform.
Oh, no.
And they couldn't get it out. And because of security rules, they couldn't even change the PayPal email address linked on the platform to try and use a different account. Just stuck.
That is incredibly frustrating. Locked out of your earnings because of an old, unintentional mistake with no way to fix it really shows the power these platforms have.
It really does. Which actually brings us to a sort of related but broader point about big tech power and data. We also looked at that IT reseller article about the class action lawsuit against Google.
Right, over its AI, Bard, and the data used for training it. What's the claim there?
The lawsuit basically alleges that Google hoovered up vast amounts of public information, everything from websites to personal photos, creative works, maybe even emails, to train Bard. And the claim is that this violates privacy laws, constitutes theft, copyright infringement, essentially taking our collective digital lives to build their product without permission or compensation.
So they're arguing Google should have asked or paid for using all that public data.
That's the core argument, yeah. They point to Google changing its privacy policy to say it would use publicly available information for AI training, which raised red flags for a lot of people.
And what's Google's side of the story?
Well, Google's position, publicly stated by their legal team, is that they've been transparent about using public data sources for years for things like Google Translate. They argue it's standard practice, supported by U.S. law for creating beneficial applications, and that they do it responsibly. They plan to fight the lawsuit.
So a clash between how data usage is perceived and what's considered legally permissible or standard practice in AI development.
Exactly. And while this lawsuit is about Google and AI, it connects back to our PayPal discussion in terms of the sheer power these platforms wield over our data, personal financial.
Yeah, I see the connection.
These legal challenges make us think harder about how our information is used, whether it's by a payment processor or a search giant. It's about user rights in this digital world.
Absolutely. It really highlights why understanding the terms, the risks, the whole ecosystem is so important.
It does. So let's try and wrap this up. Thinking back on everything, what are the key takeaways for our listener about PayPal for Business?
Okay, well, on the one hand, it can be convenient,
Yep.
right? Especially for international payments. And crucially, the fees they charge, those can be claimed as business expenses. You just need the right documentation.
Right, know how to get those statements. That's key.
But, and it's a big but, those user experiences paint a picture of significant potential risks.
Yeah, the sudden account freezes, funds being held for long periods, difficulty getting real help from customer service. Those seem like genuine worries.
Definitely things you need to weigh up. So understanding the costs, knowing the documentation process, but also being acutely aware of these potential downsides seems vital before you fully commit to PayPal.
Agreed. Which leads to the big question for you, the listener. Knowing all this, what payment methods really fit your business? What's your tolerance for this kind of risk?
Yeah, maybe now's the time to really look into those alternatives, like Stripe or others. Compare the fees, the terms, what other users are saying.
And maybe if you're anticipating large volumes or have specific worries, talking to a financial advisor or even a legal expert might be a good idea. Get some tailored advice.
Good call.
Ultimately, I think in today's world, understanding the potential downsides of the tools we use, the platforms we rely on, it's just as important as appreciating their convenience.
Couldn't agree more. It's about making informed choices that protect your business in the long run.
Click the link below to get a free Wise account. It's reliable and fast. Click the link below to learn more.